Привет, друзья! Сегодня у нас в гостях Madhukar.
Dear friends, today our guest is a worldwide known master Madhukar, and this meeting will be a gift to all his followers, and those who have never met Madhukar before get a chance to know him with our channel. We will talk and you can get an insight into. Let's greet Madhukar.
Масте. Для знакомства я бы хотел...
To begin with, I want to ask you to speak about your path. When and how did your journey begin? Who was your teacher? With what traditions did you start? What was your prime motivation on the way to self-knowledge?
Well, I will fulfill your wish and go a bit back in history, but first I like to state my realization, and my realization is there is no path at all. So if you have this desire for freedom, once and for all, you have to stop all kind of imagination of a path. Path always belongs to time and space, time and space dimension. But your true beingness is beyond that, is beyond time and is beyond space, unlimited consciousness. So this is my understanding, my realization. But of course, we also have a relative perception of the world and also of time and space, of this body, so I can explain a little bit. I myself grew up in a Christian family, so very early on I was informed about the teachings of Jesus Christ. But already as a very small child, I had a very strong experience of this life force. So even as a very small child, somehow I would not entirely accept the religious teachings. My own experience was more convincing, more powerful, a very, very direct feeling of beingness. So, but then later on, of course, I had a kind of education, and I would say in the age of 15, I was more turning away from the religious Christian teaching, and I was more interested in philosophy, particularly Western philosophers, and not only the old philosophers of the Socratian times, of the old Greeks time, but also later on the modern philosophers. And at that time I was not attracted to meditation or some techniques like this. We must also say that 40 years ago meditation and particularly yoga was not known in the West, certainly not to the extent as it is now. It was hidden, and I came to in contact with the Indian perception of life, Indian philosophy later, when I went to climb in the mountains, because I was a mountain climber, an alpinist, and I wanted to go to the Himalayas, to Nepal particularly, to climb some high mountains there. And there, like this, I came the first time to India in 1981, and somehow this had a very, very strong impact on me. Just the religious life, the spirituality of this country and the people there. So when I was then later up in the mountains, I had a very, very strong happening, a feeling of oneness, experience of oneness, where somehow I was catapulted out of this physical form out of my chest into the totality, into the universe, when I was sitting high up on 5,000 meters in front of my tent. And this was a very, very strong experience of oneness, like I already had experienced it when I was a very, very small child. So then for some years I was studying all this kind of teachings of India, the Hinduist teachings, the more traditional ones, but also the Tantra and the esoteric teachings from that. At that time I was not accepting an outer teacher, so I was somehow studying and practicing by myself. But then later, when I was again in Europe at a certain time after my studies, which I also studied first economics, then I studied philosophy and literature, and after that I worked at a journal as a journalist, first for newspaper, radio, and then at television, a big television station, and had a very, very good job. But somehow I realized that this is not really the true manifestation who I am, and I was more attracted to the spiritual. At that time I was practicing yoga and meditation, and I left Germany after I got a very, very good job offer, which I somehow rejected because I saw if I take this job, somehow my career will entangle me. And then I went to Amsterdam, and then I came in contact with my first master, which I accepted as a teacher, which was a tantric Buddhist teacher called Namkar, who also had a great following in Russia. He left his body last year. So this was my first spiritual teacher, and I practiced this Dzogchen practice for some years. But then even the formality of it somehow, my drive was always for absolute freedom, and I wanted to look for the absolute, which is not reached through any kind of ritual practice or tantric practice or visualization, but what is directly underlying everything. And this I came in contact when I heard about this guru, Papaji, that he is speaking about that truth which you don't need to meditate for, which you don't need to practice for, which you don't need to adore through spiritual sadhana, but you can have a direct understanding.
Люди сейчас
Many people
в
now
огромном
are
количестве
looking for their true self, and they are trying to get rid of suffering.
избавиться от страданий.
Mostly they are not convinced by the
Yeah.
fact that there is no need to go anywhere,
Никуда идти не надо,
and that they are already happy.
Yes.
Why is this
Yes.
happening?
Почему
Yes.
это
And
происходит?
what
Что
is
за
this
парадокс?
paradox?
Well, the suffering comes from the wrong identification with the body and with the mind, which is creating the person. As long there is identification, I am this body, I am this person, then suffering is inevitable. But if you look deeper, who is perceiving the body, who is seeing the thought, then somehow some mystery happens, and you realize that there is a deeper beingness, and this deeper beingness is free from suffering. This deeper beingness can still experience all kind of emotion, also sensation, which can be painful and which can be joyful for sure, but is in itself self-perfected and free from it.
Представим, что я впервые
Let's imagine I've just got to know that there is no suffering in reality, and that the reason of suffering is just my false identification with the personality. But look, even if I repeat the word sugar, I have no sweetness in my mouth. Is there any method which leads one into this state, or it just happens when it happens?
I agree with you that when you repeat the word sugar, then there's no sweetness in your mouth. Nevertheless, if you become silent, then a sweetness will appear in you. If you're absolutely silent, then the sweetness, which you can also call love or peace, will appear, will become manifest, because your permanent orientation to the senses and to memory and projection in the future will somehow concentrate on nowness, on beingness, and this beingness is absolutely silent, and we could say it's sweet.
получается...
So the right technique to reach this state is to stay in silence, right?
Look, Advaita, or which means non-duality, or another name for it is Jnana Yoga, which would be the highest yoga, the yoga of wisdom, is a very direct approach. So most other spiritual ways, they somehow work with successive steps, while Advaita is very, very direct. So it somehow works either through surrender or through self-inquiry. Surrender is for us Western people very, very difficult to live, because somehow it's not really part of our culture, and we would even somehow play surrender. So let's look at the other possibility, which is self-inquiry. Self-inquiry, turning consciousness towards consciousness itself. That means, with, for example, the question, who am I? Kto ja? You look, where does the thought arise? Who is this consciousness in which thought arises? Then already you have cut somehow this entire mental carpet, which you are like in a fog involved, and you become aware, here is presence. Now you put this presence in form of inquiry on this I itself. And then some mystery happens. Something, somehow this entire permanent mental, emotional activity stops, and you realize that here is a much vaster beingness, which is unlimited in space and time, that this is the underlying reality. Like this I would prescribe it, but we even avoid to see it as a technique. Why? If there is a technique, there's always somebody who is using this technique, let's say the meditator, then there is the activity, which would be the meditation, and there would be an aim of the meditation. So this, of course, would bring you again in a separation. So you look for that which is totally unseparated, which is simply naturally here and now.
Вы начинали...
You started with Buddhism, with Namkhai Norbu. Now it is Advaita. Does it mean that Buddhism is kind of not self-sufficient and doesn't lead to this realization? Or it's just about one's mental structure?
Don't adhere to any kind of competition between the philosophies or the religions. So I look more for the unifying aspect. So first of all, also this Dzogchen, where what Namkha Noble was teaching is a very particular, a very high form of Buddhism, where you somehow realize that you are Buddha yourself. So this Buddha nature should be realized, of course, without what in the West you would call ego. Yes. But somehow you realize that lightful Buddha beingness, that it is you yourself. So in this, the teaching of Namkha Noble was very close to Advaita.
For how much Christianity is out of this character?
Well, the Christian, what you call the Christian concept, is definitely lives definitely in duality. So it speaks about a God who is somehow in heaven, and the Son of God or the messenger of God who somehow brings the human being, which is not God, towards God. So there is a clear duality there. There's a clear duality there. While in Advaita, somehow one realizes I am, point. But you could also say I am God. But of course, when we speak that in, probably also in Russian, if I would say this in English or German, this is like a blasphemy. It's not allowed. So it's not part of the religious understanding that I am God. Because this is considered to be arrogant. It's considered to be arrogant. But if you become absolutely silent, then you realize that there is no separation at all, and also no limitation. If there would be a limitation, that means it would not be absolute. And the absolute must include God also. Therefore, God is here. See, divinity, and divinity is here, and it is my nature, it is our nature.
Как ощущаешь?
How does it all feel, and what it is all in reality?
I am formless, and also I am in form. So I can also see formlessness, but I see also the entire manifestation of the world. You see, you can see it outside, these beautiful mountains, which we have here now in Kitzbühel in Austria, where I'm hosting a retreat right now. So I see the beauty of the nature. I could also dream in the night, and also manifestation can be seen. This is the capacity of our senses, of our brain. But there's also the formless manifestation. And then I would describe it with other words, like I did before, with sweetness, or love, or with peace.
Is it possible to teach this state?
It is possible to point to truth. It is possible to be, and by beingness, through the presence of the master, of the guru, somehow mysteriously teaching happens. Words, of course, are only for the mind, and mind can only reach, let's say, to the gate of truth, but cannot enter. But it can be also helpful that certain doubts can be clarified. That can be also helpful. But the most effective is the presence of the master, and he points towards truth, and you yourself realize.
What is truth?
The truth is that you are peace itself, beauty itself.
You spoke about Namkai Norbu as your first teacher, and I want to ask about other teachers you met. For example, I have heard that Osho was one of them. Is it so? Can you speak a bit on it?
No, I would not say so, because even though I was in that time already in India, when Osho was sharing his teaching, but I was not particularly attracted to him because he was very much inspiring the Western people to break their limitations and to live a free life. I was already very much a free spirit and living a very free and joyful life. So this was not of attraction to me. For me, it was when I heard from this master who says there's no need for meditation, there's no need for practice, there's no need for sadhana. Because at that time I was practicing a lot, particularly yoga, many hours a day, and also meditation and so on. And when I heard this somehow exploded like a bombshell in me, and I said, yes, this must be the truth, because somehow freedom which was always attractive to me, must somehow be totally unlimited. So when I heard from this guru, Papaji, when I heard it, I felt immediately attracted to see him. I was a very proud man, so I didn't think I go there and I will accept him as a guru, but I wanted to somehow to know his secret. So I boarded the train in Goa, it was at that time, and drove this 42 hours by train all the way through India, up in the north to Lucknow, where he was sharing satsang.
For how long you stayed in his field?
Up to now.
If no practices lead to that, what is the aim and the task of the masters when they invite people and speak about that?
Well, first of all, many teachers, they advise practice. Many teachers are teaching, some teaching which they have learned themselves or according to a particular tradition, and they prescribe techniques and have certain aims. So this is fine to me. I only speak about a more direct approach, because even when you do some practice and you reach certain states, still, if you're honest, you will have to look who is this being who is experiencing states, who is in this state, in that state, and so on. So sooner or later you have to inquire, who am I? And this Advaita, at least this pure Advaita, which I use there, this is the most direct approach. So of course you can also see this as a certain effort, as a certain technique to inquire, because not necessarily you will realize just like that. You will still be in this field of identification with the person and with body and mind, and therefore even this self-inquiry might take time. But it is essential that it's always stated again by the Guru that who is already here.
Thank you very much for this meeting, for the opportunity to ask questions, to know each other, to communicate, to introduce you to our audience. And at the end, I want to ask a simple question. What do you enjoy in life now? Maybe there is kind of a hobby, just something that brings joy in your everyday life.
Well, I love to be in nature. I love to be in nature, particularly at the ocean, and to be on the beach, and to play there, and to walk there, and to swim in the ocean. This is what I like very much. Therefore, I spend quite some time in these areas.
I want to wish you all the best, health and wellness, and thank you also for this book that was handed over to me. Here it is, a very beautiful book by Madhukar. If you are interested, the book is already available in Russian.
I like to add something, if I may, because I've been traveling to Russia first time in 1982 already, and have also shared for 20 years satsang there. So I find that the Russian people have a great advantage, which is beneficial, which is the quality of their heart. So in my experience, it gets sometimes a bit diluted by too much believing in a certain conceptual spirituality. But the power of the heart is the most powerful and promising. And with this, from love, I like to greet you. Thank you very much. And also the listeners.
Thank you very much. Next time when you are in Russia, in Moscow, I invite you to come over to our studio to drink some tea and to share time with our audience.
Oh, very good. Очень хорошо. I like that very much. Благодарю.